see those sleigh bells jingling, ring, tingle-ling.
Hey guys, Katie here. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to Vlogsmas. Today's video is a react video, and we are going to be reacting to Entitled Parents at Christmas time. So the links to all of these stories will be in the description of this video if you guys want to read them. Check them out and stuff like that on your own and read the comments or whatever. So this one is How My Mother Ruined Christmas. Okay, so it says some backstory. My mother, female 48, is a classic textbook case of a narcissist and a drug abuser. She abused me for as long as I can remember, both physically and mentally. I posted before and raised by narcissists about how she lost both her children. I'd received a laptop from my then boyfriend, now fiance, male 29, in 2016 for my schoolwork, and so I could have something to do in the house since my mom stole all the electronics for herself. The laptop broke down a few months later because it was old already, and I put it aside so I could fix it. So I, female 23, lived with my mom until age 17, and here is a story of how she threw me out of the house and made me homeless. It was Christmas afternoon 2017, and my fiance and I were having Christmas lunch at my grandmother's house because it was tradition. My mom stayed home because she wasn't feeling well, and I thought nothing of it. Oh, how I would be wrong. Around 4 p.m., I get a text message from her saying, "Thank you for your Christmas present. The laptop works perfectly fine." I look over at my fiancé with a look of confusion, and he shrugs and goes on with eating. Once we are done at Grandma's, I shoot her a text saying, what do you mean? I already gave you your gift last night." To which she replies, "Well, you know that old dusty laptop in your room? I got it fixed so I can use it since my phone broke." At this point, my fiancé noticed that I was getting angry and drove me to my mom's house to get the laptop back. Yes, people, she took my fiancé's laptop that he had given to me and claimed it was hers now. So after a frustrating drive, we get home and I start arguing with her about the laptops. Her exact words were, and I fucking kid you not, "If you want it back, you'll have to pay me 80 euros. It's not cheap, and you know I struggle with money." I saw red. My fiancé held me back as I almost jumped at her. Once I was calm, in comes my mom with another beautiful line that made me snap. "If you don't like it, you can take all your trash and leave my house. The laptop was in my house, therefore it's my property." After those words, a huge yelling match ensued, and she hit me a couple times. She forcefully removed me from the house as my fiancé decided to stay out of it. Smart move on his side. He didn't want to get involved, as for my sake to not make it worse. He knows how she can get and knows it's best to comfort me afterwards. And she threw all my stuff out of the window. She kept the laptop, and I still don't know what happened to it. I wasn't allowed back in the house and basically was homeless for 5 months. I stayed with my fiancé, but yeah. Even when I asked her later about this encounter, she claims not to remember and that she would never do such a thing. I currently don't have contact with my mom because of reasons in the other post, but yeah, this sums it up pretty well. Yeah, wow. That is a clear narcissist right there. I'm glad you are out of that situation now. Okay, the next one. Parents accuse me of ruining Christmas every year. Now wonder why I hate Christmas. One of my parents' many deep wounds is that because they grew up poor, they never got the magical sort of Hallmark kind of Christmas they grew up seeing on TV. Fair, but unfortunately for my brother and I, who were raised upper middle class, that meant that our Christmases were more elaborate, vicarious wish fulfillment role-playing scenes than they were a holiday while I was growing up. Christmas had to be this perfect event, filmed and documented. We spent just as much of the evening before and the morning of posing for forced family photos as we did anything else. There was more yelling and screaming that things go exactly as planned than those photos suggested, but back then I thought that was normal. The big sticking point every year was naturally the most vapid and consumerist part of the whole event, the presents. For context, I have always had one true passion my whole life. I've been drawing, sculpting, painting, and sewing since I was a very young kid. I work professionally full-time as an artist now. I still have my first sketchbook from when I was 5 years old, full of drawings of me trying to replicate the anime characters I watched on TV. And I never had enough supplies, I was always running out. As I got older especially, I was desperate for more advanced and expensive tools like resin casting and drawing tablets. My point being, they were clear and obvious choices for presents. I put almost nothing but art supplies and maybe a DS or a specific book on the Christmas list my mom asked for us to make her every year. Only, my mom had a very interesting gift-giving habit. Despite asking for Christmas lists, my mom would often get only one, maybe two things on them. She wanted the day to be a surprise, so she often just bought whatever she wanted. And when it came to buying gifts for me, her daughter, that often meant buying things she wanted. Oh God. Things she would have liked when she was my age, again trying to vicariously live or get the childhood she wanted. Not only that, but my mom wanted to buy me things that she felt looked impressive to share online. And art supplies wasn't impressive to her. So she'd get me expensive jewelry and clothing, weird gadgets, extremely overpriced bathroom products for some reason, and then maybe a few cheap art tools or materials, which, is fine. I wasn't a greedy kid, and I appreciate the thought, of course. I didn't complain. But a polite thank you so much and a smile wasn't enough of a reaction from my parents. I guess I wasn't a very good actor, and they could tell when I wasn't being genuine about liking something. They start interrogating me immediately. Don't lie, why don't you like it? What's wrong with it? I thought you liked it. And then feeling backed into a corner, I'd be honest with them that I don't really like what they got me, even though I appreciate the thought that always led into, do you know how much I paid for that? I would have killed to get something that nice for Christmas. You're so spoiled. We grew up dirt poor and you don't know what it's like to not get a Christmas at all, etc. I would end up feeling so guilty and ungrateful by the end of it, often locking myself in the bathroom or going into my room to cry after, which, like it was tradition, would prompt my dad to say to me every year, you ruined Christmas. Christmas to this day has become an unbelievably stressful time of year for me. I can't look through photos of particularly bad years without crying still. In my mid-teens, I developed what was basically a nervous reaction where I'd be holding back tears and fighting to keep myself calm from the dread and anxiety of just having to open presents. That made it worse because whether I liked what they got me or not, they interpreted it as me being difficult and snobby, so I'd get guaranteed yelled at and berated for hours afterwards. Christmas became nightmare ordeals, prompting some of the worst fights I've ever had with my parents, not really much to do with the gifts themselves, and more so how I was never happy ever and how it was ruining the whole family. This was particularly embarrassing when it happened in front of extended family over for the holiday. I got a reputation in the whole family for being a bratty teenage girl because my parents would talk shit to them after the fight was over. It was degrading and humiliating. When I was 13, that was the first year I asked them just to not get presents at all for me. That I just wanted to enjoy the time with family, that's what really mattered to me. I was thrown through a loop at the time when telling them this somehow made them angrier at me. They always brought up money, how I wasn't appreciative of how much I had compared to when they were growing up, so I thought this was the obvious solution. I thought the problem was I had too much, obviously, and needed less. They accused me of not wanting to participate in Christmas at all, even though I still wanted to celebrate the holiday with them. That made everything even worse that year when Christmas did happen. Every single year, I begged them to just not buy me anything, that I was fine. That never worked, and it was like we were all cursed to relive the same dramatic fight over and over again, come December without fail. They did the same thing to my brother, accused him of being ungrateful and spoiled, but he was always better at keeping his feelings on the inside. He didn't understand why I couldn't just stonewall it like he could. I felt so shitty about how every year, no matter how hard I tried, I'd crack and start crying. I am now an adult, of course. I don't live with them anymore. I've asked them several times if they really even want me to come down and be there when they'll have a better time with just my brother. I tell them I can come down and see them every other day of the year, but as I ruin Christmas without fail, I shouldn't be there on the day itself for everyone's sake. They get offended by the idea, so I end up coming down. They're utterly befuddled as to why I despise Christmas as much as I do when it's such a happy time of year. I started telling them it's because I have a strong distaste for the consumerist aspect of it, which is true, but obviously it also very much has to do with the association of shame, guilt, and humiliation. That seemed to have been the magic key, though, because this year finally they agreed to not give me any presents. We compromised by them helping me get some new equipment for work, which was very generous of them, and I very much appreciate it. I love my fancy new work computer that can run all my work applications much better than my old one. Their last Christmas went pretty well because of that. They complained the whole time and acted like it was such a shame I didn't have anything to open on Christmas Day, but I felt much more at ease. I just kept reminding them how much I love my work computer. I feel like a weight has been lifted and that Christmases will be so much easier to manage now that presents aren't in the equation. Still, though, they know I have nothing but negative feelings towards it, and that I refuse to celebrate it with any of the partners I've had, since the last thing I want us to bring that nightmare holiday into my relationship. So, that sucks, because they didn't have a very good Christmas. They want to overdo it, and they want you to be uber appreciative, even if it's too much for you. Like, you know what I mean? They're trying to push and push and push, and it's not, you're not them. You're not going to react how they might have reacted when they were younger. It's like they're trying to do a good thing by, like, breaking that generational curse, but they're overdoing it. They're pushing it too much, and they made their own generational trauma from it. So hopefully you don't let it ruin Christmas for you your entire life, but I'm sorry. Okay, the next one is, my dad yelled at me on Christmas for not trying ham. Okay, just for a bit of context. One, my dad is usually nice and a good person, but when he's mad, he's an asshole. Second, I have avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, or ARFID. It's an eating disorder that causes people to be extremely selective about what they eat and afraid to try new things. On to the story. This took place around 2 or 3 years ago. Me and my family were sitting at the table eating Christmas dinner. I had my own food because I wouldn't eat anything my family was eating because of my disorder. Anyway, my dad put some of the ham on my plate and asked me to try it. I refused. He then proceeded to scream at me for not trying it. After I was done with my food, I went to my room and just started bawling my eyes out. Talk about Christmas spirit. That sucks. I'm sorry. Your dad should be more supportive. Next one. Untitled friend/parent decides to bring their uninvited child to our adult Christmas party and take over our house. My wife and I have an annual Christmas party at our house with our friends and siblings each year. Last year, 2 of our friends had a child shortly before the party. The child wasn't invited last year either, but we weren't bothered, giving it was more like bringing an uninvited potato than a person, giving it was an infant at the time. This year, the child was walking and whatnot, and they told us they were getting a sitter, so there seemed no reason to mention that it would not be appropriate to bring the child to our party. As the title indicates, without asking or even telling us the child was coming, they showed up with their kid, and we had in no way set up our house to be child-proofed. As a result, we had to close a bunch of doors that were intended to be left open to allow guests to spread out into our basement and living room. So for most of the party, we had about 14 people cramped in our small kitchen, as the parents let their 1-year-old child roam freely. Our party is by no means a rager, but people were drinking a lot less than normal, and my wife and I weren't drinking at all, as we're responsible for what happens in our house, and the parents weren't keeping a good eye on their child. The one thing the mom decided to do was tape a bunch of our drawers shut without asking to do so, and with our tape, which meant she went through our drawers without asking, as obviously the kid was going around opening everything and pulling stuff out. Oh God. As the unintended child continued around, he kept messing with our dog, including taking food out of her bowl and pulling on her fur, and the parents still didn't do anything. Being between the dog and the child became part of my duties as host. Our dog is a rescue and quite skittish, and by some miracle of the universe, it just put up with the child each time I wasn't in the right place at the right moment. Similarly, the child pulled the bells off our door and broke them that our dog has used since the day she was adopted to signal she needs to go outside, and now she can't seem to understand that our new different looking bells are for the same purpose. Next, the child was getting tired and cranky, and instead of taking the child home, they decided it was time to go into our guest room, which was closed and used to store all the extra stuff we had around the house that we moved to make room for the party and our guests. This greatly embarrassed my wife, as we had cleaned all the public places completely and we didn't do much for areas guests wouldn't see. Uninvited and without asking, they set up a playpen for their child, which they built and then left the trash for it in our house before returning to the party themselves. They didn't leave until 10, basically killing around half the party for us and much of the party for our other guests who didn't stay that late. I am by no means mad at the child. They're a kid and don't know any better, but the parents should have known to not bring their kid to an adult Christmas party. So, yeah, I think the only thing that, like, is your fault with this, everything else is the parents' fault, because, like, obviously. But the one thing that could be considered your fault is the fact that you let it slip the first year of this child's life. You let them come, even though he was basically a potato, but you put it in the parents' head that my kid's allowed to be here. And not everyone has the common sense to think, oh, there will be many adults drinking alcohol. Maybe we shouldn't take our child. We're going to be drinking alcohol. Maybe we shouldn't jive with our child. And, you know, your poor dog, too. That sucks. I know it's uncomfortable to ask people to leave, but, like, that wasn't a safe place for that child at all. Alright, next one. Evil stepmother tries to ruin my Christmas, but I unintentionally ruin hers instead. Throughout my entire childhood, I was subjected to physical and mental abuse by my former stepdad, who we'll call asshole parent AP, and former step-grandmother we'll call evil bitch EB. EB would even encourage my younger stepsister, who we'll call Anna, to tease and harass me as much as possible, just to provoke me and give EB more of a reason to torment me. When I was 9 years old, I moved back from Colorado to California to live at EB's house with my mother and two younger siblings, while AP stayed back in Colorado for a few more months to finish up his contract in the Army. We were staying there so that my stepdad could save up for us to be able to move out into an apartment together. I absolutely hated living at EB's house. She made it a goal to make me as miserable as possible, sometimes physically but mainly mentally while we lived with her. She made sure not to do it in front of my mother either, and would deny everything I would say whenever I would run crying to my mother about it. The sad thing is my mother believed me but would do nothing about it whatsoever. EB enforced a bedtime on me without TV, which is realistically understandable in of itself, except for the fact that Anna could stay up to watch TV herself secretly in EB's room, just another way for her to mess with me. I had no sense of safety or security in that house. I would stay in my room and away from EB as much as I possibly could. I wouldn't even go into the kitchen and get food if I was hungry, just because I was afraid she would be right there ready to mess with me if I wanted something to eat. So I only ate dinner in that house because my mother would be there, and I reluctantly knew that that was the only safe chance I had to eat. I still ate at school and everything, but it's a shame I couldn't eat when I wanted to at any point because EB had placed that much anxiety and stress in me. For the next part of the story, I want to quickly give some context. I fell in love with Pokemon as a kid and would religiously play Yellow version on my Game Boy Pocket every single day. I very badly had been wanting a Game Boy Color since it first came out. Fast forward to Christmas time. We're all opening gifts. My siblings and I get some toys, each for different things we like, for Mother and AP. Next, I opened my last gift from Evie, which is some cheap battery-powered Pokemon game that's shaped like a Pokeball with no screen and a bunch of red lights that come in that kind of plastic packaging you need scissors to open all around the edges. Anna opens her last gift from Evie, and it's a green Game Boy Color. I immediately started crying, not because I was ungrateful and expected more. I'm always appreciative with any gifts that I get. It was because I knew for a fact that Evie did that to deliberately get to me. The reason I know this is because Anna didn't play video games, ever. She had a Nintendo 64 with a few games, but that thing collected dust until I started living there. Anna didn't even ask for a Game Boy Color for Christmas. All she wanted was Rugrats figures. After all of that happened, I went to my real dad for the rest of Christmas and to spend time with him and that side of the family. I open all my gifts and get a bunch of cool stuff, toys, and some Batman pajamas. Finally, my dad gives me 2 final gifts to open. I open the first box and it's Pokemon Gold and Silver, and I'm already beyond thrilled, thinking it can't get any better than this. I open the next gift and it's a purple Game Boy Color. I could not contain myself. I was so happy. It really felt like a dream come true. After some time with my dad's family, I return home to Evie's house and run inside, excitedly holding up my Game Boy Color, showing my mother an AP. Evie sees the Game Boy Color in my hand and immediately storms off to her room and slams the door as hard as she can to not be seen again for the rest of that night. Even my mother, who doesn't ever bother to defend me, couldn't help but find it funny that her plan to ruin my Christmas had backfired on her. I recently told my dad the story on Christmas this year, and he and I both got a good chuckle over it. So, yeah, I hate when there's, like, stepkids involved, and, like, the grandparents are like, yeah, you're not my real grandkid. Like, they're kids. Come on, really? And this grandma just took it to a whole nother level, but I'm glad your dad had your back. I'm sorry that your mom didn't have your back. Next one. Okay, entitled Mom Wants a Christmas Present for a Baby That We Didn't Know About. A bit of background. My female 28 small family has a tradition of everyone sending something little to all the children under 12 at Christmas. This has included cousins' children because there's never been more than 5 children in that age bracket. My family is very small. My partner's male 25 large family does not have this tradition, but my partner and I decided to keep it up because of a few of his cousins, whom we are close to, have had children in the last few years. For this story, it's important to know that the golden child phenomenon is very prevalent in one half of my partner's family. My partner is not the golden child, nor was his dad. His cousin, Kay, was, however, the golden child, and her mom, EA, was also the golden child of her generation. I have never met Kay or EA because of COVID. Living far away and them keeping events small, I view this as perfectly reasonable. Partner is vaguely insulted, but not enough to be angry, and I send them Christmas cards to be nice. To this story. This year I bought Lego/bath toys, age dependent, and sent them out at the start of November to all the kids. No in-person swaps this year. Pat on the back, good job done. Nope. Little did I know, Kay had a baby in October. She hadn't told any of my partner's immediate family. His grand with severe dementia had mentioned that she was pregnant in summer. We chalked this up to be in the same realm as I Remember Your Wedding to my father-in-law, and partner was so good-looking in his army uniform, as it's all totally ridiculous but mixing people in the family. Kay wasn't in a relationship, 20, and had previously told everyone who had kids that they were wasting their lives on the little brats. Plus, Kay's sister had just had a baby. EA had also confirmed that Kay wasn't having a baby in August when someone mentioned it. Yesterday, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Kay, and she was fuming. The call went like this. Kay, is this similar name to mine? Me, no sorry, it's my name. Who is this? Kay, yeah, that's what I said. It's Kay. Can't believe that you don't know that. Me, right, okay. Nice to talk to you, Kay. Is something wrong? Is Gran okay? Honestly, the only reason I thought she could be calling and shouting was grief. Kay, Well, you should know. I can't believe that you sent cousin a present, but not me. Me. Oh, sorry, no, those are for the kids. I'm only sending presents to the babies. Kay. What? Not sending anything to the baby shower was bad enough, but excluding me from Christmas too? How could you? I'm going to make sure Grandma never talks to you or partner again for being such a bitch. Me. Hang on. Did you have a baby? Kay. Yes, you know this. Everyone knows this. Don't play dumb. Me. Congratulations, and sorry, I guess, but when? Kay. F you. She then hung up on me. I texted my partner's mom, and she hadn't known either, but had sent EA cash for a missed party in September. She'd not been invited and wanted to just keep the peace. We then did some Facebook snooping and learned that my aunt has been unfriended, but she did have a baby girl. In the meantime, EA sent my partner an essay text accusing him of being a terrible nephew for not following Kay's Instagram or Facebook to see family news or sending her only grandchild a present. She has other grandchildren who we sent presents to. She also said that burning bridges with Kay was jealous and childish, and she'd be sure to tell Grandma how cruel we were to make sure we got our comeuppance. I can't say that. She then proceeded to send us Amazon links to what Kay wanted to make it up to her, each of which was at least $50. It had to be something nice because I have a fancy job in London. The kicker, they're probably still cutting us out of their lives for being toxic, but want presents so they will consider not making sure the rest of the family do too. Yeah, wow. That's... wow. If you don't tell people, how are people supposed to know? Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Bye.
Yeah, see those sleigh bells jingling, ring, tingle, ring. I'm on the lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you.